Should jogging or walking in your city be an exercise fraught with risk? No, it shouldn't. A walker, a jogger, a pedestrian, a cyclist has as much right to a city's road as a car. But as cities expand to accommodate roads and flyovers and bus stops, pavements and footpaths shrink and they eventually disappear. So pedestrians become forgotten citizens. 51 pedestrians die every day in India just crossing a road or walking on the roadside. Marathoner Rajalakshmi Vijay became part of that statistic on Sunday. The 58-year-old CEO of a tech company was jogging in Mumbai when a speeding car rammed into her, flung her onto the bonnet, and eventually threw her on the road. Her head injuries were so serious, ladies and gentlemen, she didn't even make it to the hospital. All of this happened at 6:30 in the morning on a Sunday. The speeding car was being driven by a drugged 23-year-old returning from a party. Sumer Merchant has since been sent to 3 days in police custody. He had tried to flee the spot when he and his co-passengers realized that they had killed a woman. Mumbai, ladies and gentlemen, has the highest number of taxpayers in India. Is this what they deserve? A city where you go for a jog and never return. This could have been your father, this could have been your wife, this could have been your mother, this could have been your child who was walking to school. There are more pedestrians in this country than cars. Then why do they not have the right of way in your city? How has walking or jogging in India's metros become a daily agony for millions? It's a question I'm asking this evening on the Urban Debate. But first, I'm putting that question to Milind Soman, who is not just an actor, but he's someone who knows India's roads well. He's a marathoner, he's a jogger, he's a runner, and he runs all across the country. He's joining us on the broadcast. Milind, thank you very much for your time here on Mirror Now. First things first, your thoughts on what happened in Mumbai on Sunday. Here is a lady who it seems you knew well.
Yes. Thank you, Shreya, for talking to me. And of course, I had met her a few times. I mean, the whole running community across India is like a big family. And it's really sad.
Mm. 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 Milind, you're a Bombay boy. And as someone who's a resident of Bombay, as someone who's run across not just the city of Mumbai but across the country as well, what's been your experience of running on Mumbai's roads? How did it become a place where you go out for a walk or you go out for a jog and you don't come back?
Well, I've been running, of course, on the roads and the highways and across the country, as you mentioned, for more than 20 years now. In fact, much more than 20 years. And I've seen, as you mentioned, the space is shrinking, roads becoming, wider, footpaths becoming narrower. And as you also mentioned, there are many more pedestrians than there are cars. So why do pedestrians not have a space? It's ridiculous. And we've seen this happen too many times. So I think we must, as a community, as a society, work towards making this non-existent. These kind of, I wouldn't even call them accidents, because we know what is going to happen when we don't have the right infrastructure. We know what is going to happen when we drink and drive. And yet we do it. We don't pay much attention. So I think all of us, including the media can be great towards sensitizing people, the public, about pedestrians. Car drivers, of course, because they've been given the right, of the roads. So many times people yell at me for running on the road, but it's impossible. Where there is a footpath, I do run on the footpath, but where there's no footpath, where am I supposed to run? And, so it's difficult. And people say, why are you here? You shouldn't be here. So there is this kind of conflict that also exists between runners and I would say cyclists also part of it, runners and cyclists, and on the other side, car drivers. And of course, the second thing is drinking and driving. I mean, that is something that I find inexcusable, really. One is that the infrastructure must be better. Footpaths must be wider to accommodate runners as well, so they don't have to run on the road. I would say even things like, traffic signals, because I've seen that in most cases, traffic signals only start working at about 7 or 8 in the morning. So all night, cars can speed and don't expect to be stopped by traffic lights. So the traffic lights, I think, should be on all the time as a deterrent to speeding. And also maybe we can have, nakabandi, like these kind of places where cars are forced to slow down because of barricading. So there is, like they do when the police are checking, so they can have a kind of barricading on all night which is movable, and at a particular time they remove it so that the traffic can move faster. But things like that we need to think about. And I think also the media needs to be a big part of this. The media needs to be a big part of this. I think car companies need to be a big part of this. Alcohol companies need to be a big part of this, about talking about it, advertising, sensitizing the public. It's like runners sometimes feel that they're not part of society, which is not right. I think running is something that is making our country fitter and more active. We have the fastest growing running community in the world, India, which is amazing, which is incredible. And I think every effort should be made to encourage that. So even having citizen corps that come out, groups in the night to make sure that the traffic doesn't speed, help with this barricading if that is possible. Things like that need to be done. And if I can be part of it, I'm very happy. I can work with Mirror. If Mirror wants to be part of a campaign like that, an ongoing campaign, because we see, once in a while it comes up and people start talking about it, and then people forget. I mean, that is our tragedy. When something happens, we talk about it, and when it doesn't happen, we forget about it. But I think the media can really, really make a big help. I think something like, the infrastructure needs to be changed. If we keep talking about it, it's going to happen. But for that, we need you also to take a stand with the public, and I hope you can do that. And we'll talk about that maybe after this call. I think even when drivers get licenses, they must be educated, and they must maybe sign an affidavit that they will not. It's an undertaking that they will not drink and drive. I think it's understood, and it is a crime anyway. But they must sign an affidavit saying that they will not, and only under that circumstance will they get a license. And I think it should be zero tolerance. I think I don't know what happens when drivers are arrested and the breathalyzer shows that they've been driving under the influence. What happens? Are their licenses taken away? Are the cars taken away? I think there should be zero tolerance. If you're found to have been drinking and driving, your car should be just taken away. You no longer have the right to drive on the road.
Well, the fact is that with hit and run cases, they go on for years. You never know how they end. Milind, this is what I want to ask you. When the story was put out, when the story was first put out yesterday, one of the first comments that we got on social media was, but why was she not running on the pavement? That what is very visible is the fact that this is Worli Sea Face, and there is a place for joggers there. There's a broad pavement for joggers there. Why was she running on the roads? Why was Rajalakshmi running on the roads? Is there any good explanation for that?
I can't hear you anymore.
Okay. So what we'll do is, Milind, if you can't hear me anymore, we'll try and reconnect you.
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Milind, the point. Okay, great. The point I was making was this. Yesterday, when the story came out and we put it out on our social media handles, one of the first comments that came, and then we got these comments, over and over again, is why was Rajalakshmi walking on the road when this is Worli Sea Face and there is obviously a dedicated space for joggers? Now, this was 6:30 in the morning. I'm assuming that any jogger would understand that it's a perfectly safe time for you to be jogging on the road. This is not peak traffic hour. But would you want to respond to that question?
But like I said, there is a conflict. There are people who don't run, who don't understand that how much space is required actually for people to jog. Today, there are thousands and thousands of people in Mumbai who jog every morning. And the footpaths can't even accommodate it. It's okay on Worli Sea Face. Like I have run from Shivaji Park to Nariman Point. So obviously there is no footpath that can accommodate runners all the way from Shivaji Park to Nariman Point, which is 15 kilometers. So of course, runners have to be careful. Cyclists have to be careful. Anybody crossing the road has to be careful. But speeding is something that should not be allowed. Why is speeding okay? Why is drunken driving okay? These are things that need to be addressed. apart from the infrastructure, of course, which needs to be better, there need to be wider footpaths so that runners or pedestrians or whoever is on the road and not in a car doesn't need to come onto the road because there's just no place on the footpath. That definitely has to be addressed. I mean, there has to be sensitization across the board, but I think drivers definitely have to be made more responsible. A lot of my friends have suffered like this. I know a lot of people who have died in incidents like this. The first thing is we must understand that it's not an accident. The car is in control of the person driving it. We can't say that the person was killed by a speeding car. The person did not die knocked down by a speeding car. The person was killed by a person driving a car at speed. This is important to understand. The person was driving the car at speed. The car didn't just come and kill somebody. So we have to open up ourselves to understand what exactly goes on behind this. It is the infrastructure also, the way the roads are designed, the way the footpaths are designed, the signals, the barricades, the speed breakers. A lot of these things do come into it. But speeding is something that is in the control of the driver. And in a city, I would say there is no need to drive over a speed of 50 or 60 kilometers per hour, which at that point, if you see something in front of you, you are able to slow down. But if you're going at 100 or you're going at 110, it becomes very difficult for any driver to avoid something that can, suddenly come in the way. And it could be anything. Like you mentioned, it could be a child. You can't expect the child to be responsible. The child might be there. I mean, and what will the driver do if he's driving at 110 kilometers an hour?
Fair point, Milind. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much. I think you speak on behalf of the entire running community in this country. Thank you very much for joining us.
I hope so. Not only that,
Deepak
Shreya,
Lohande's Director Striders.
I hope that I'm speaking on behalf of the entire country, not just the runners, not just the pedestrians. Every Indian needs to be sensitive about this. And I really hope that Mirror can do something, would love to be part of a campaign. Let's talk about it. And let's make sure that we keep talking about this and not wait for something else to happen where it becomes news. We don't want any more news like this.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you there. You're speaking on behalf of the entire country, not just the joggers community. Rightly put, this could have been anyone. This could really have been even a small kid going to school. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Milind, for joining us.